to the Entertainah Talking Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And if the volume's a little bit off, I apologize. I've been doing the videos with my phone, but this video, because of all the notes I had to pull up, I thought it would be much easier to just do it on the laptop. So if the volume's a little off, I apologize. But I wanted to talk about the story that came out late last night, and a lot of you guys have been talking about a potential GM change with the New York Giants, and we'll see. It hasn't happened yet, but the Giants, of course, are off to a 1-6 start, and we all know what John Mara said at the beginning of the year, that the New York Giants, if things haven't improved, well, there could very well be changes from within the organization, and to me, that clearly hints at Dave Gettleman, a guy that some Giants fans were surprised that he was even back in the first place when they decided to move on from the head coach last year. And a lot of New York Giants fans, if they decide to move on from Dave Gettleman, have conflicting views as to what they should do at the general manager position. Some think they should remain in-house for the stability of the organization, holding on to Daniel Jones, so on and so forth. Others think they need a brand new fresh start, a young mind to come in here and shake things up for this organization, because doing the same thing over and over again just does not bring different results. I personally side with if they could find the right guy to bring in somebody from the outside. And the guy that I've consistently said in all my streams when people have asked me who would be your ideal choice if the New York Giants decided to move on from Dave Gettleman for his replacement. And my ideal choice is Nick Caserio. One, because he's incredibly accomplished, and we're going to get into all of his accomplishments throughout this video. He's been with the New England Patriots for 20 years, since he was 25 years old. He's 45 years old now. There's been a number of teams that have been on his heels to be a potential GM in the past. He showed interest in the New York Giants job, I think in 17 or 18, before they hired Dave Gettleman. I don't think the Giants ever brought him in for an interview, if I'm not mistaken. But the Patriots have done everything they can to keep this guy within the organization. And we're going to talk about what Jason La Canfora had to say today about Nick Caserio and about Dave Gettleman. And from what he's hearing, the New York Giants will be moving on from Gettleman, or probably moving on from Gettleman, and Nick Caserio would be their ideal choice. But several teams have tried to bring him in, including the Houston Texans twice. They had to actually come up with the Nick Caserio rule this year, which bans teams from blocking a GM candidate 3 times. I think that's what the rule states, or whatever it may be. But they had to come up with a rule because the Patriots have done everything they can to keep this guy within their organization, and he is widely credited with being one of the instrumental forces behind the 6 Super Bowl championships for the Patriots. He's been there since they won their first under Bill Belichick, and he's been Bill Belichick's right-hand man. He's been in charge of the wide receivers. He's been in charge of the scouting. He's been all throughout the organization. And the most important thing with Nick Caserio, and why he is a draw for me as a New York Giants fan, is his ties to Joe Judge. I'm a guy who consistently, talks about stability. Bringing on Nick Caserio, a guy who has a great working relationship with Joe Judge, to me, would show that the New York Giants are starting to bring some stability to this organization. Along with Judge, obviously, he's worked with Patrick Graham as well. You have a lot of smart minds in this New York Giants front office, and that is what I would like to see if they decide to move on. A guy who wants to work with Judge, not a guy that's going to be looking for his head coach. I like Joe Judge. I want Joe Judge to be a part of the future, and bringing in Caserio would be ideal. Now, of course, the bad news is the New York Giants will definitely have a lot of competition with a guy like Nick Caserio. I read that several teams, if they move on from the GM, he would be at the top of their list. And we all know that he'd be at the top of the Houston Texans list, being that they've interviewed him twice. So we'd have to wait and see how that played out. Now, just analyzing the Houston Texans situation compared to the Giants. One, they no longer have Bill O'Brien, who had ties to Caserio. So there's no working relationship there. But two, they're already paying their quarterback $40 million or whatever they paid Deshaun Watson. So a lot of cap is tied up into him, and they don't have a first-round pick. So there's not a lot of flexibility there from Caserio. The Giants actually may look like a more attractive job, but that will be up to Caserio if he does, in fact, want to come here. And I would think Bill Belichick may steer him in that direction. We all know he's got a warm spot in his heart for the New York Giants. But let's jump into some of the things I was able to pull up about Nick Caserio and being a potential GM candidate for the New York Giants. First thing I wanted to pull up for you guys was the quote that came out of the CBS article that a lot of people have been talking about Nick Caserio, Dave Gettleman, and the New York Giants, according to Jason La Canfora from CBS Sports. Should the Giants ownership opt to make a change at general manager by 2021, which many within the game believe is inevitable, Patriots personnel executive Nick Caserio will be near the top of their list of candidates, league sources said. And I think he should be, if nothing else, for the stability of Joe Judge and the accomplishments that he's had with the New England Patriots. And yes, people have brought over coaches from the Patriots and it's failed. But if you could start to bring over some of that front office, the guys that were responsible for building that football team, that is going in the right direction, at least in my opinion. Next thing, Nick Caserio was named Director of Player Personnel on February 21st, 2008. I got this off the New England Patriots website. After serving in a number of roles for the Patriots personnel department and coaching staff, he enters his 20th season with the Pats in 2020 and his 18th season in player personnel. In 2007, Caserio served as the Patriots wide receivers coach, which is ironically the same position that Joe Judge served there just last year, following a 3-year stint as the team's director of pro personnel from 2004 to 2006. Caserio is also credited as one of the architects of the Super Bowl, of all 6 Super Bowls that the New England Patriots won while he was there. So that's some pretty good. Those are some pretty good accolades that he was able to compile while he was with the New England Patriots. Caserio joined the Patriots in June 2001 as a personnel assistant and celebrated the Patriots' first Super Bowl title that season. During that year, his role was expanded to include film breakdown and scouting report preparation for the offensive staff. He became an offensive coaching assistant on Bill Belichick's staff in 2002 and returned to player personnel in 2003 as an area scout prior to becoming a director of pro personnel in 2004. In addition to his duties in the personnel department, Caserio continues to handle the coaching booth responsibilities for the coaching staff on game days. So it sounds to me like Caserio pretty much does everything but be the head coach for the New England Patriots. Sounds like he's a lot more than just a player personnel guy, which they later go on to say. Caserio's job title, Director of Player Personnel, is not befitting of his all-encompassing role in the Patriots organization. That's been his position since 2008, but only tells about half the story. It's true, he is the Patriots' de facto general manager, but he's also much more, as he now enters his 20th season with the team. And then I wanted to pull up some of the things that Joe Judge had to say about him, obviously being that he's the New York Giants head coach. The role that Nick has in the building is amazing. New York Giants head coach Joe Judge said last season when he was with the Patriots wide receivers coach and special teams coordinator. The fact that he actually transcends all aspects of the organization from the personnel to the coaching. He understands what we're doing in player development. He's very involved with players hands-on. I don't know how many other personnel guys you could say that about. And that was it, actually. That's what I wanted to pull up. There was another quote from Bill Belichick that I meant to pull up for you guys. I wasn't able to do so. But obviously very encouraging things coming out from Joe Judge. And to me, that's the biggest driving factor. Obviously, the guy's had a ton of success with the New England Patriots, and he'd be a young, fresh mind that would want to work with our head coach, with Joe Judge. I just think it would make way too much sense if the New York Giants were to move on from Dave Gettleman. Now, will they move on from Gettleman? That remains to be seen. The only way I could see Gettleman keeping his job is if the Giants showed significant progress over these last 9 games, and they may or they may not. We'll have to wait and see, if the wins start to compile. This would be the point in the schedule where you would need to see it if you were Gettleman. After the Bucs game, there's 3 winnable games against Washington, the Eagles, and of course the Cincinnati Bengals. And if they start to turn the corner, maybe it's possible that he's back. But if you have an opportunity to bring in a young mind like Nick Caserio with ties to Joe Judge, and there's no way that you can know for sure you'd get him, the New York Giants have to think long and hard about doing this. This is a guy that Bill Belichick didn't want to let go. And he's a guy that basically has every responsibility on this team. The most successful franchise in professional sports over the last 20 years. I would welcome him with open arms. And you guys know I try to defend Gettleman when I feel like it's appropriate. But you don't pass up on a guy like Nick Caserio, a guy that has ties to Joe Judge. The question is, would he want to come here? As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.